Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Raff, and welcome to Real Talk. It's been a while since we've done a podcast, mainly because we've been in the legislative session and it's been very busy. But I wanted to highlight some of the things that have come out of the session this year. And really, a big priority was childcare. It's something that Democrats felt very strongly, and even Republicans, that we need to do something to help working families be able to afford childcare and good quality childcare. And really, the driving force behind that is Commissioner Beth Bye for the Office of Early Childhood. So I want to welcome Beth to Real Talk to explain why this legislation is so important. And I think the bottom line is it's a role model for the rest of the country.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Susan. It's been an exciting week with the passage of Senate Bill 1, House Bill 5003, and the bond bill really creates a package for a future in Connecticut where childcare is affordable for family, where the teachers are paid on par with public school teachers, and we can do the kind of facility improvements to build places that our young children deserve. So it's a huge bill with so many parts to it, but really a model for the country because it addresses all three things: quality, access, and affordability, all in one session, if you will.
You hear it all the time. I remember when my children were young, and you hear it now, and it's even more expensive childcare. And if you're not making decent wages, and let's face it, a lot of women are not, they
Mhm.
can't really afford to go back to work or stay in their job, and they have to give that up. This legislation really allows tens of thousands of people to be able to do what they want to do, not be forced to do something that because they just don't have the money.
Exactly. I mean, I think for families, so basically the state funded system now has about 20,000 spaces. This will double that. There are only about 34,000 kids in a cohort. So for children 0 to 5, this will double the capacity of what we call early start, which are state funded programs and family child care centers, public schools, settings where families have choices about what they want, and now those choices will be affordable, all three kinds of choices, affordable for families. So if a family makes less than $100,000, that care will be free. Childcare will be free, paid for by this endowment. The bill establishes a way to pay for this to help families have the infrastructure they need to work. And then if families make more than $100,000, they will pay no more than 7% of their income, which is about half of what most families making $100,000 a year or more are paying right now, unless they're in a super high bracket, in which case 7% is the full cost of care. So, I think there are two things that are important to keep in mind. One is when you make care affordable, childcare and housing are eating up families' incomes more and more. The cost of both has doubled in the last 20 years, basically, or more. So now how are you supposed to, get a salary that's been going up 3 to 5% a year while these other costs have been going up faster at twice the rate of inflation? And Governor Lamont really believed that childcare was a way we could give families some relief and get women back in the workforce and men. There's some men who don't work because they can't afford childcare, but it has been mostly a women's issue where it's like if the woman doesn't make enough to make it worth paying for childcare, they drop out of the workforce. And they don't just lose, say, that 5 or 7 years that they spend home with their child. They also lose that time on a career ladder, that time saving for retirement, that later independence for women. So it's not a little thing. And finally, one thing I think we forget is when you have young children, your life is so stressful. You're trying to work full time, take care of young children. And I know in my house growing up, when my mother was paying the bills and there were stresses and strains, there was a lot of stress and strain in the house. And you didn't go near the kitchen, which is where her desk was when she was paying the bills. If you take a bill like this off of parents' back, you actually improve the quality of life in the home as well as the child with better paid teachers and new facilities, improving the quality of life for that child in the center. I don't think you can measure that, improving the quality of life, But I think it's super important. And sometimes we forget it when we do this. Well, the return on investment is 13%. And we can get very wonky. This is going to make a difference in the lives of everyday parents and children.
And it affects not just childcare centers, but also those childcare providers in their homes. Tell us about that, how the legislation
Sure.
increases the ability to take care of more kids and pays people a little bit more so you can attract better childcare workers.
Yeah. I'm going to take us a little bit down memory lane and just say that during the pandemic, we realized how critical childcare was. The childcare programs most likely to stay open for families who needed to get to work were family childcare homes. They have these close relationships with the families. They knew they needed to get to work. They needed the funding. And it really made us in Connecticut, while we appreciated family childcare, appreciate it in a different way about how much family childcare is a part of our workforce infrastructure and how much in neighborhoods there's small businesses and reliable consultants that parents in the neighborhood go see. We really came to understand this was important. So about 2 years ago, we welcomed family childcare into the early start system, into the state funded system. And it's been a game changer for them because they couldn't be part of the sort of state childcare infrastructure. So now we have, probably after our two RFAs in the past few years, 100 family childcare homes that are state funded homes. And in 2027, we'll get way more because for some families, family childcare is really the solution. And so we're saying you are part of our education system. You'll have to meet some standards for teachers and standards for curriculum, like everybody, but that this setting is valued. And I think it's been underappreciated. And I would say, as a longtime childcare center director, my youngest child was overstimulated in a center. And I centered a family childcare 3 days a week and then the center 2 days a week. So Governor Lamont thought it was really important to have options for families here. And family childcare and centers in public schools gives families a lot of options to access affordable childcare.
Right. I think options are very important. And I know when it's family childcare, it's certainly more reasonably priced. So it's easier a little bit for parents to be able to afford that. Why are we seeing so many big childcare centers close? I remember, when my kids were small, we saw a lot of more Bright Horizons, Care, all of that. And they're still around. Is it because they've become so expensive that families can't afford them? And what are the reasons we don't see as much?
Well, in Connecticut, we haven't lost that much capacity, certainly just like businesses. Some businesses open, some businesses close. But the change, sort of the ones that report to private equity, if their profits aren't where they need to be, they shut down. Whereas the community-based programs are sort of, it's bigger than the profits to them. They're entrenched in the community and you see them hold on if they possibly can. And sometimes towns give them free space. And, there's a lot of investment, sort of communities trying to hold on to those local nonprofit childcare programs. But it really depends on where the money is, Susan. If a company's willing to pay $1 million to have Bright Horizons offer childcare to their employees, Bright Horizons will open. But there's no way to make a profit just on what parents can pay. So that's why you'll see Kindercare and Bright Horizons often affiliated with businesses or right in a business park where they can get space or when it's in their interest. And we think that all childcare can be high quality childcare no matter who's doing it. So this is a way to do that. I'm just going to ask Susan. I know that noise. Do you hear that noise or no? In the
A
background.
tiny little bit.
I can try to move spaces so that interrupts your flow here.
It's not so bad. It's almost like I heard someone talking, but I don't hear it anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just
The
forget
earbuds
that.
do that.
Whoever
Okay, I
that
know you
is,
can
they went
cut,
away.
cut
So
and
my
paste.
my question is also, this week we saw Governor Lamont and yourself and all the people who have worked together, and the benefit of working together really makes a difference. And I remember last year there was bipartisan legislation to pass TRISHARE, which was
Right.
huge, right? So that shares the cost three ways, right? The state, the parent, and the business, because everyone has a vested interest. So it really makes a lot of sense. And I want to talk about the money because everybody wants to know how this is going to be paid for. Um, and so it was a little bit controversial, right? We're using some of the surplus money and we're creating a separate trust fund with 253 million, I believe, right, to be put in that. And there was some pushback from Republicans and others, to do that, to create a special account. But the governor was very clear that he wanted something to be consistently funded. And I guess as long as we have a surplus, we can put money in that because the concern was if you just put it in a one-time thing, it's going to run out, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the governor's idea, I think, is really quite brilliant, and it's part of how Connecticut is going to stand out. I think Connecticut and New Mexico, maybe California, have funding strategies where there's ongoing investment in a fund. I think New Mexico uses oil reserve dollars. California uses a soda tax, but ways that they are investing on in an ongoing way. So this creates a fund that is about up to 300 million in the first year, and then each year the surplus will go in, so it will grow over time, and we can spend 12% the first 2 years and then 10% after that. So just for context, because people are like, well, what if there's no surplus? Well, we went back about 7 years, and the average operating surplus was $470 million. The governor plan that we worked on is counting on 300 million a year. So it was a conservative estimate so that we wouldn't plan over our heads. And each year we can make a decision. However much money is in there is how many families we can serve. But first will be the rates, the facilities, and the affordability for families. After that, any added funding will add children. So I think it's a really brilliant plan and idea that he had, because the state keeps most of the money on its books, right? It's an endowment. So the dollars stay on the books, and it's such a good investment. So it's like he's taking the surplus and making an investment in Connecticut's future, one that we know has a 13% return on investment. There's this, paying down the bond has a great return. All the other things we're doing to reduce our costs, long-term costs, are good, but nothing can touch this investment. And for decades, we've known this, but no governor has really said, I believe it's an investment. But I think his background as a businessman and reading the Blue Ribbon panel report and listening to his friends as they talked about it, because he has a lot of folks he knows who really believe this will be important for Connecticut to move forward and get the workforce it needs as an aging state to bring more women into the workforce. Connecticut has one of the biggest gender gaps in workforce participation for children under 6 in New England. So this is a real, very clear, specific way to invest in our children, invest in our families, and invest in our workforce. So it has those three advantages.
And it's a good boost for the economy because women can keep their jobs. They
Exactly.
can stay in their homes. They have more money to spend.
Yeah.
So it really is a win-win. So if I'm home right now and I'm listening to this podcast or in my car and I'm thinking, all right, I have a child and I would like to participate in this and get free childcare. What do I need to know in order to make this work for me and my family?
Sure. Well, this all really kicks off July 1st, 2027. And I know it's hard to wait if you have a 3-year-old or 2-year-old, and childcare so unaffordable. But there are options now. As I said, there are upwards of 20,000 spaces that are state funded now, and another 20,000 public school spaces, some of which are free, many of which are free. One of our challenges is we don't have a really good way for parents to find that. We have 211, which is great. That helps families. But part of these bills is a portal where parents can put their information in and will automatically be able to see what are the subsidized, what are the full pay, what are my options, what are my public school options. So that will be available in July of 2027 now. But for now, I think you check in with your boards of education. you reach out to your local school readiness council or through your mayor's office or school board, they can get you in touch with that. I mean, I think we've done a really bad job, including OEC could do a better job of letting families know where these subsidized spaces are, because currently there are, almost 20,000 spaces where parents will pay no more than 10% of their income. This bill and the funding and the endowment will bring that down to 7% and free, and will double the number of spaces open. So it's going to get much easier to find those spaces.
Now, can you go and pick what child care facility you want to go to, or there will be a list of those that are available? And will they be all over the state and convenient for parents to drop off their child before they go to work?
Yeah, that's the idea. It will expand further and further. It starts in the highest need, highest desert communities, and then moves out. So parents will be able to find that. And I think in every community has some public preschool because of the way we run our preschool special ed, which is something else I'd like to mention. During the Blue Ribbon panel process, we heard from parents of 3 and 4-year-olds who had special education needs. And the current system is not working. They're needing to choose between a half day, part week preschool to get the speech and other services their child might need, and working, because you can't very well have your child in care 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week and work full time. So this bill does plan on having about 7,000 of those part day, part week spots turned into school day, school year spots, working with the superintendents and the public schools. We've met with them. We're going to have to figure out exactly how it works best for them, but we do have a program called Smart Start, which shares costs with districts if they agree to do school day, school year programming. And hopefully that will help that segment that has really, I can't tell you how many parents we heard from who they have birth to 3, which will go to their childcare center, which will come to their home. Everything's great. Then their child turns 3, and suddenly they're on the public schools calendar for Part B programming, which is often part week, part day. So that might be too much in the weeds, but that's how much the governor's team listened. Let's get in the nitty gritty of who's having trouble accessing care to be able to work. And that was a real segment that was impacted.
Well, I think it highlights the fact that, not one size fits all, right? So
Exactly.
listening to people, and we know that there are a lot of parents out there with children with special needs. That was also a priority this legislative session for special education. So, and I think you're right. If you make it work for them, that their quality of life is a lot better. And I know and I know that you'll keep pushing, because I think eventually you would like universal pre-K for all children. That's kind of a goal, but this is a good place to start, right?
Yeah, and I think given the funding of the endowment, we could easily be there. I mean, we think given even our conservative projections, by 2032, we'll have universal preschool in Connecticut. So the governor still achieves his goal, but also listened and said the infant toddler is a big problem for families. So let's use some of the endowment for that as well.
Okay, so wrapping it up, I think you highlighted something too that's very important. This is a good program and beneficial for a lot of parents, but they may not know about it, and that's where the media really can help. I think in a lot of ways we can by doing that. So your Board of Ed, is there a website, a 211? Talk to your what's the best course?
211 is the best course right now. We're hoping to improve our technology to be more customized for families, but that's the best. That's the best course now. They do a great job of helping families.
Right, and explain I'm a parent and I have a child and I want to participate in this.
And here's what I need. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think
it's
OEC
great. OEC, I believe, now has. If you go to the OEC website, we have posted all the programs that have this subsidy up to 10% of parent income. So parents could also go to just Google Office of Early Childhood. The website will come up, Connecticut. Okay.
Commissioner Bye, thank you so much for joining us on Real Talk. Congratulations. I think that judging from the reception that you got at the Capitol this week, that this is something that people are very happy about and feel that Connecticut is doing something that will make a difference for a lot of people.
Yeah, and Susan, I can't thank you enough. You make such a difference every day for people with your reporting. They wait for your reports. They want to know what's happening in government. And we always have a good time when we're together. So I really appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you. Back at you. Thank you so much.
All
And
right.
we'll check
Yeah.
back in, a few
We'll see
months
each
and see
other
how
like we
things are
do.
going.
Yeah. Okay, great. Bye-bye.
Enjoy. Thank you so much, Commissioner Beth Bye, Office of Early Childhood. I'm Susan Raff. And thank you so much for listening to Real Talk. We'll hopefully see you again real soon. Thank you.